Hey there, everyone. This is meteorologist Ryan Weekman. Thanks for joining us for our first May edition of our Sunday night weather hangouts. Those of you that are watching live, thanks for tuning in. I know there's a lot of you that also watch this delayed, either later on Sunday evening or during the daytime hours on Monday. So I want to join you guys as well. For those of you that are watching live and you've never watched this for us here, this is something we've started about 2 months ago on our Sunday evenings. It gives me a chance to get out a little bit of the geekiness that I can't get out, the nerdy side of me, when I only have 2 to 3 minutes to talk on air, and I have so much more weather knowledge that I kind of want to talk about and some of the cool intricacies of the forecast. I really want to talk about a few other things and give you guys a chance to get a little bit more interactive here. So that's why we're using the Google Plus platform here. And those of you that are watching on Google Plus, well, you've probably been doing this for a few weeks now. For those of you that are watching on our Storm Track weather blog, you can look up above and see the paragraphs written there. I have links to my Twitter and Facebook pages on there where I've been asking this evening for you to submit some questions. For those of you that are watching on Google Plus, there's a live Q&A session, and I'll get to some of those questions coming up here in a little bit. But if you ask a question in the Google Plus Hangout, it actually pops up on this box here on my computer screen, and so I can see these in real time. And once I get past the forecast that I'm going to talk about here for the next few minutes, it gives me a chance to answer those questions in order as well. So if you're joining live right now and you're maybe not so sure about the whole Google Plus platform and stuff, just sit back, enjoy. We're going to answer some questions here and get through the forecast. For those of you that are a little more comfortable and are watching on Google Plus, don't be shy. Ask your questions here. This is your chance. And again, we do this every Sunday night that we can at 8:30 p.m. This is our Sunday night weather hangout, and we'll also do it during times where there might be some severe weather as well, or leading up to some stronger storms. We'll try to do these through the week leading up to that to give you guys another chance to ask questions and for us to dive a little bit deeper into the forecast. So speaking of that forecast, let's get to that for you here as far as what we're looking at. And again, if you're new, one of the things I tend to do here on our Sunday Night Weather Hangout is flip the screen around. You see me here. I'm in the Storm Track Weather Center. For those of you that have never seen the Weather Center in real life, this is pretty much it. It's a bunch of computers and a bunch of fun stuff for us here. It's a big mess right now. And for those of you that want to know where we actually do the weather, if you're watching us on TV, this is pretty cool, right? There's our green screen over there. We're going to have a fun show coming up for you guys in a few weeks here. I haven't scheduled it exactly when we're going to do it, but in addition to our regular Sunday night weather hangout, during our Fox show at 10 o'clock, we're going to do a live Google Plus hangout. We're going to give you guys the chance to ask questions, and we're going to watch live from behind the scenes of a live newscast. So you guys can turn on your TV, watch the newscast, and then if you're sitting at your computer, you can actually be watching a behind-the-scenes version of it while we're on the air and during commercial breaks. I think it'll be a lot of fun. It might be something we'll try to do more often, but I'll send something out. Again, if you guys follow me on Facebook and on Twitter, the links are up there. We'll put that link out there. It'll be a pretty fun time for us. All right, let's get to the forecast. Let's get to the good stuff, right? That's what everybody came here for. So without further ado, here's the very latest for us here. This is our SimuAWIP software. This is some great free software that's online, simuawips.com. And all I'm showing you here is the last few hour loop of visible satellite. You'll notice the eastern half of the country does go dark over the last few frames, and that kind of makes sense. The sun is setting in the eastern half of the country, so you won't be able to see anymore with the visible satellite image. It's the shot that starts to go down. Here's one of the weather tools that we look at called water vapor across the eastern part of the country, actually across the whole country, but this is what we look at, and we'll pretty much never show this to you on air. It's just it doesn't have enough value with our story that we're trying to tell you as far as the forecast the next few days. But this is something that we look at to recognize where there's higher content of moisture in the clouds in the atmosphere. That's shown where the blue and the gray is, and where there's drier air. That's where the orange and red values are across the southern part of the country. It also shows us which motion, which way the atmosphere is moving. So it shows us motion. Pretty much we're in what we call a zonal flow right now across most of the country for us as far as what the water vapor is showing. And that basically means not a whole lot is changing across the country. It's a very fast-flowing atmosphere. But the way that the frontal boundary is across parts of Kansas, Missouri, southern Illinois, basically right along the Ohio River, not a whole lot is going to be changing over the next few days. And here's what I'm talking about as far as that's concerned. Here's the more zoomed-in view of the Great Lakes. Here's Michigan. Here's Lake Michigan. Here's Lake Erie. So Toledo would be about right there in northwest Ohio and southeastern Michigan. This is just a simple radar. This is anything that you guys can get on your smartphone as well, or if you turn into our evening newscast, we'll show you a loop of the radar. It's nothing special here. But you'll notice this very narrow band of rainfall, basically extending from just south of Columbus through South Bend in Chicago. And you'll see some more radar returns starting to light up back towards Waterloo, Wisconsin, and back to the north and west. But this is part of that stalled out boundary that I was talking about. And you'll notice it didn't move much during the day for today. It's not going to move a lot with the way that the atmosphere is set up right now, but it's going to shift just a little bit to the north for tomorrow. So where those showers are right now, or where they were earlier today across much of Indiana, it's going to be displaced a little bit further to the north, and it's basically right along and north of a frontal boundary that we're going to be paying close attention to. I'm switching things over now. This is a representation of a computer model basically showing us what it thinks the temperatures are going to do over the next few days. And while it might not be exactly spot on, it has the general idea right enough that this is how I want to explain this to you, okay? Great Lakes, they're cold. Okay, after the winter that we've had, the water's going to take several weeks to warm up right now. The water temperature off of in Lake Erie, off of Toledo, is actually near 50 degrees, which isn't too bad, all things considered, the winter that we went through for us here. But here's that frontal boundary. Notice the warmer temperatures in the greens and yellows further off to the south. Well, it becomes much more defined as we go into the afternoon hours for tomorrow. Look at that front through northern Kentucky, southern Indiana, central Illinois, back towards Missouri. That's what we want to go for. That's where the warmer air really resides. And if we take this even further into the future on Tuesday, the front becomes even more pronounced. Look at this warm air across Kansas City back to the west. For us, look at the breeze that continues off of Lake Erie with an easterly flow. So over the next few days, while we are tracking a warm-up that's going to be coming our way, you guys are going to notice that we're going to be saying, okay, there's a warm-up coming, but hold on, we've got to get a few more days past us, and then we're really going to get that warm-up. And I'll show you guys a 7-day forecast here in just a few moments, but I'm telling you, once we finally get that wind to shift from the east off of Lake Erie, remember lake temperature is 50 degrees, to a more southerly and southwesterly wind, that's when things are really going to warm up for us. And that's why late April and early May is a season for us as meteorologists where we sometimes start to pull our hair out. All it takes is that little shift in the wind direction, and it can mean 20, 30 degrees sometimes in the forecast for what things are going to be, all because of Lake Erie and how close it is to us. So watch what happens here at the forecast, according to this weather model, as we go Tuesday and as we go into Wednesday. See where that front now lifts close to and into the area. This is going to be a close call on Wednesday if we're going to get the really warm air to be able to push in here in time. But it will be close, and I think we'll easily get into the 60s and potentially even the 70s on Wednesday. But either way, by the time we get towards Thursday, that's when I expect things to really begin to warm up. And anytime there's a frontal boundary in the area with that area low pressure, look at it back here towards Kansas City. See the L on the map right there near Omaha, Nebraska? That's a telltale sign that we're going to have to keep chances for scattered showers in the forecast over the next few days. So that's the gist of it as far as the warm-up that's going to be happening for us here. Here's the 7-day forecast. If you guys haven't checked this out, if you guys don't have the Storm Track weather app on your smartphones, you got to get it. We update this thing all the time, 3-4 times a day, along with our weathercast on air, but you can view this obviously when we're not on TV. Look at that high for tomorrow. The mid-50s, that's it. That easterly wind off Lake Erie is going to play a big role in that forecast. Tuesday, we'll get a little bit more sunshine, and that's why we'll boost temperatures up into the low 60s. Wednesday, that's going to be the tough one. Again, we'll have some scattered showers, but look at that, 67 degrees, some scattered showers there. Thursday, that's the big day. That's the jackpot. 83 degrees is what we're looking at there with some scattered showers looking pretty likely Friday into Saturday. And I know this time of year, anytime that we see a warm-up and we have to put chances for showers and thunderstorms into the forecast, we start getting those phone calls. We start getting some nervous folks out there, understandably, wondering what the chances for severe weather are for the week ahead for us here. So right now, my current thinking is if there was to be a severe weather threat, it would probably be on Friday. But right now, the timing of that cold front coming through and the way that the cold front is really aligned with the upper level pattern, it doesn't really condone itself to really being a high-level threat for us right now. It's something where I definitely think thunderstorms are possible. There's going to be enough juice in the atmosphere for that. But as far as anything more, as far as severe weather goes, there might be a very small wind threat, but it doesn't look like anything worse than what we saw last week with those storms. So we're going to hold on. We'll take a look at that. And as far as what the National Weather Service, the Storm Prediction Center, is saying, they're pretty much in line with that. Here's their 4 to 8 day outlook. And it has highlighted a severe weather threat day 5, which would be Wednesday, across most of Iowa, western Missouri, northwestern Arkansas, back into southern Minnesota. So further off to the west, but as far as into northwest Ohio and southeast Michigan, the threat doesn't look high enough just yet for us to be looking at that sort of criterion for severe weather really be mentioning for us here. Okay, something else that we had questions about. So Danny asked that question, actually, the severe weather threat. What does it look like for us over the next 7 to 8 days? So Danny, I hope that answers your question, and I'm sure there's more of you out there that were wondering what the severe weather threat looks like. Matt had a question. I believe that this question came off of my Facebook page, so we're going to answer this question for you. Matt asks, what are we looking at as far as rainfall totals go? You saw that 7-day forecast. We have chances for isolated showers for tomorrow, an isolated shower on Wednesday, but again, those rain totals don't look all that high. I think the highest chance for a heavy, decent downpour is going to be during the daytime hours on Friday and perhaps into Saturday as well. But overall, the Gulf of Mexico really doesn't open up for us and produce a lot of moisture over the next week. So as far as the rainfall totals go, here's what the Hydrological Prediction Center is showing, and I think this is pretty fair. Over the next 5 days, let's say a ½ inch of rain, maybe 3/4 of an inch of rain if a heavy thunderstorm happened to sit over an isolated spot. For the most part, over the next 5 days, anywhere that's in this darker shade of green here is between 1/4 and a ½ inch of rainfall. So it's not going to be all that high out there, and I hope that's some good news for some farmers out there that are hoping for some dry weather. They can get the seeds down, and we can keep the dry weather for a few more days and a few more weeks potentially to again get those seeds in the ground, and then we can get some moisture going. Then we want the rain, right? All right, let's get to another question here. I know I've got some showing up on my Google Plus account over here, and I see these guys. I'm going to get to these next after this question, so if you guys have a question, get them in on Google Plus right now. I'll be going through there and answering them after this one. The question is from Sarah, again on my Facebook page. Sarah asked, she saw this picture, and she didn't attach the picture, so I'm not exactly sure what it looks like, but she saw a picture of this cloud formation called Mamadas Clouds, and she wanted to know, can those happen here, and what exactly do they mean? Well, this is one of the cool parts of this Google Plus Hangout. We don't have to ask questions, and I don't have to answer questions specifically pertaining to the forecast. I can answer them about pretty much any subject, and this is one of the cool ones. As a former storm chaser, and hopefully someday we'll get to go back out into the Central Plains and chase some more. Mamadas is a cloud formation that I saw quite a bit. And you've never seen this. It can kind of spook you out a little bit. They happen a lot of times in and around severe thunderstorms, specifically on the backside of severe thunderstorms. And they look like these low-hanging pouches from 30, 40,000 feet up in the air. Some of the more spectacular pictures are pretty breathtaking here. Let me bring up one of them for you and show you just how cool that these can be. This is one that looks really neat for you here. They almost look like lumps hanging underneath of the cloud deck. And again, these are 30, 40,000 feet up into the air. And this one was taken when the sun was going down. So that's why they have the different colors on the bottom of them. Sometimes they can turn bright orange, just like your other regular clouds during a sunset, but they just happen to have a lot more shape to them, so to speak. And then when you get deeper into the cloud deck, you'll notice you'll get your typical grays and blues with a thunderstorm and with the cloud deck that you'd normally expect for you there. But it's an awe-inspiring sight, and it's something that you typically see more in the Central Plains, but it is something that we certainly do see here and across northwest Ohio and southeast Michigan, but obviously we don't see as much severe weather as Tornado Alley and Dixie Alley does. So that's why we don't necessarily get as many shots of these types of clouds. Basically, what do they mean? That means the atmosphere is very unstable, and as far as seeing them, usually the storm has already gone through by the time that you can see these. Sometimes they are in the leading edge of the storm, but around here, for us to see those Mamadas clouds that are, again, really high up in the sky, it's a lot more difficult because when we get severe storms around here, usually we get a low deck of stratus clouds right before the storm, and it makes it a lot more difficult to see these types of clouds. But here's how they form. When you look at a diagram of a supercell or a thunderstorm that could produce severe weather for us here, here's a schematic of it. I'm not going to go into great detail about all of the formations that we're seeing here, but think about the storms as any other animal. The red line here is the warm, moist, that juicy air in the summer. Well, it goes into the storm. The storm breathes that in, that unstable air. It rises through the atmosphere. Think about when you open an oven and that hot air hits you in the face. Warm air rises. Same thing happens on these severe weather days. Well, for every upward motion, there has to be a downward motion in these storms as well. You'll notice that's where the blue arrows are as well. And if you've ever been sitting outside in the middle of summer and it's one of those really hot days and you get this whoosh of really cool air that hits you in the face right before the thunderstorm comes through, well, that's exactly what you're experiencing. That warm air goes up into the thunderstorm, and of course it has to fall at some point. And that's the cooler air by the time it comes back down. It's rain-cooled air. So that's the basic anatomy of the thunderstorm. And we're not 1,000% sure on exactly how these Mamadas clouds form, but we've got a pretty good idea. Basically, the upward motion, the instability, once this cloud layer reaches the next level of the atmosphere, well, it's kind of capped. And so some of that motion ends up getting pushed down into Mamadas. And you can see that in the ridges here out in front of the thunderstorm. But more commonly and more dramatically, they're found on the back side of these thunderstorms. And these are the ones that are usually end up being a lot more photogenic. So to answer your question, I believe, Sarah, was, can we get them around here? Yeah, we certainly can, and in fact, we usually do see them around here, especially if we can get isolated thunderstorms, really strong thunderstorms that clear out quickly behind it. If you keep an eye to the sky after those thunderstorms, you can typically see them. And as far as when you want to see them, again, usually it's a strong sign of severe weather. But keep in mind, these are 30 to 40,000 feet up in the air. So if you see something that looks like that picture we were just looking at, it has to be really high up there for it to truly be the Mamadas clouds. All right, so Sarah, I hope that answers your question. Again, if you guys have any more questions, we're going to keep this Google Plus Hangout going on. You can ask your questions. We're going to get to some here. Tanya asks, what advice would you give to those who want to be a meteorologist like me? Well, first of all, this is a great question because for most of my life, I was trying to figure this exact same thing out. I grew up in Northwest Ohio. In fact, I grew up in Bowling Green for my entire childhood. And I always wanted to know, I knew I loved thunderstorms. They always fascinated me. I loved snow. I was always that kid that was out shoveling early in the morning when we had those big snows. But I wanted to know, how do I really become a meteorologist? Well, first of all, you got to be studious. You got to really be good in your math and your science and things. But grades aren't everything. Make sure you read up as much as you can about these sorts of things. For me, to be a meteorologist, to be an actual meteorologist, I had to go to college for 4 years and get a degree that aligned with the National Weather Service guidelines to become a meteorologist. So I am a degreed meteorologist, and I just happen to really like the broadcast side of doing this as well. So that's why you kind of see me on TV every now and again. But I also have a very nerdy side, and that's why I'm trying to do these things like these Sunday night weather hangouts where we can talk a little bit more in depth about the things that we can't get out just on the green screen as well. So if you want to be a meteorologist, I was just at a school last week, and one of the kids asked, I want to be a weatherman, and they were in the 3rd grade, and I said, that's fantastic. Go read as many books as you can about the weather, because right now that's the best thing that you can do, and never stop pushing yourself. So, Tanya, I hope that answers your question, and hopefully if we happen to have some kids out there that are watching, that's my advice to you. Go read as many books as you can, because I know that's the #1 thing that happened to help me out as well. All right, let's get to our next question here. This one's from Christopher, and Christopher asked, are we going to stay in the warm weather, or will we get more cold weather? Christopher most likely asking about that warm-up that we're tracking in that 7-day forecast. We're certainly not done with the colder weather, but this is certainly a good sign that we're starting to turn the corner here, Christopher, and I do expect that this warmer pattern will most likely be sticking around for us longer rather than shorter for us here. But keep this in mind for you, everyone watching out there. We aren't completely done with the ice on the Great Lakes. Look at this. This is the latest reading from the National Weather Service Great Lakes ice coverage, and it still has 21% ice coverage. Now, most of that is up on Lake Superior, but nevertheless, that is very impressive for the first week of May to have that much ice coverage. So we're going to be talking about the Great Lakes playing a cooler role in our forecast still for the next several weeks, at least potentially for the next several weeks, until we can really get that ice off of there and start warming up these Great Lakes. So, Christopher, we're not completely done with the cooler weather, but nevertheless, I do think we're starting to really kind of turn that corner. All right, we'll answer one more question here for all of you that are watching. This one comes from Tanya. Tanya says, do you think we'll break a lot of records with this summer based on the pattern, or is it really up in the air? Well, right now, Tanya, it is kind of up in the air, but I would lend our chances to breaking record highs to be a little bit on the lower end of the spectrum. The reason being, years that we've had really, really warm summers, it hasn't been preceded with really, really cool weather or cold winters. A lot of that has to do with what we were just looking at with the Great Lakes. Because of how cold those Great Lakes are, it takes a little bit longer for us to get going in the early spring months, and by the time we get towards the summer, it just seems to be a little too far out of reach to break those records. So while it is up in the air, and certainly we could have a chance to break records if the pattern lines up just right, I don't think we're overly stacking the odds in our favor to break those records. So thank you for that question. That was a great question. Again, Danny, Sarah, Matt, Tanya, we had Christopher asking some great questions. Don't be shy, guys, as we lead up to these Sunday Night Weather Hangouts. Ask your questions. We'll try to get to as many as we can. Again, for those of you that are watching live, certainly I appreciate you taking time and joining us. We're going to try to get more interactive with these. We're going to have more fun as we go through the summer. Those of you that are watching live or watching later, don't forget, like the Facebook and the Twitter pages up there. I'm always loading those with content and information, even when we're not on TV, so you guys can get the very latest in the forecast. And, of course, once we get geared up more into severe weather season, once that pattern starts loading up for us here, you can be sure I'll be posting the very latest information on there for you. And we'll be doing more of these weather hangouts even outside of Sunday nights to give you guys the very latest information. So thank you guys very much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great week. I'll see you at 10 o'clock over on Fox, and at 11 o'clock we're right on time over on WTOL. I'll see you there.